Mr. President and members of the Senate, I rise to pay tribute to one of the most effective policy strategists and strong advocate for public education and human rights this state will ever know, Senator C.J. Prentiss. C.J. Prentiss was a friend of mine. We served together in the Ohio House of Representatives. We were soulmates. She was an intellectual, a scholar, an education guru. She had the impressive credentials to be a successful leader, policy leader in education. She had experience as a school classroom teacher. She had her bachelor's and master's degree in education. She served on the State Board of Education. She served on the education committees in both the House and the Senate. However, she had an additional characteristic, an internal compass, a heart focused on nurturing and supporting those she often referred to as our babies. Most of our successful colleagues are good at making politically expedient decisions. C.J. Prentiss had a different approach in that she had a passion and a vision that wasn't popular. She identified the best pathways to advance education and human intelligence. I was magically drawn to C.J. She's kind of a workaholic, and mainly because of her substance and her style and her commitment to our children. It was unwavering. She worked around the clock. I spent countless evenings with her and George, her trusted, full-time, lifetime senior staffer, strategizing with CJ about her next brainstorming scheme. How many times, and so many times, her ideas would challenge our caucus and the legislature in revolutionary ways to live up to the legislature's commitment to our babies. The third grade guarantee was a hallmark of her policy portfolio. She championed this concept 3 decades ago, and the policy initiatives outlined in the third grade guarantee are still the guiding principles that we incorporate today in the Fair School Funding Plan. Concepts like early learning, all-day, everyday kindergarten, concepts like reducing class size and supplemental funding for disadvantaged pupils, wraparound services, and she was opposed to social promotion. These initiatives have proven to be transformative, particularly for low-income pupils, both urban and rural students. C.J. Prentiss was also crafty, and she employed different strategies to promote her policy agenda. During the budget deliberations in 1993, she was successful in getting an appropriation in the House budget to pay the state's share of school breakfast program in the House version. But the Senate removed it, and she was, to say the least, displeased. She organized a hunger strike that I participated in. We lived on just water alone for over a week until the funds were restored. I remember losing a lot of weight during that time period. Senator Prentiss also recognized the absence of progressive think tanks conducting research and contributing to the policy debate here on Capitol Square. So she was one of the founders of Policy Matters Ohio. Policy Matters now is engaged and make significant contributions to the policy discussions in the legislature and in the state government today. Senator C.J. Prentiss, a friend of mine, an advocate for our children, and one of the most effective strategists and strong advocate for public education and human rights this state will ever know.
Thank you, Senator. The chair recognizes Leader Antonio.
Thank you, Mr. President. And members of the Senate, I rise today in honor of former minority leader C.J. Prentiss. She passed away on April 2nd. She was a longtime public servant in Northeast Ohio who tirelessly served all of Ohio. I'd like to take this time to highlight some of the importance of C.J.'s life and what she accomplished for anyone who didn't know her personally. My first experience in politics came from volunteering for C.J. Prentiss's campaign when she was running for the Ohio Board of Education. At the time, I didn't know there was an Ohio Board of Education. I was in my 30s, and this was new to me. She was remarkable, and as Senator Sykes has already said, there was something very compelling, very magnetic about C.J. Prentiss. You wanted to kind of bask in the glow of her brilliance and her passion, and you wanted to avoid her getting irritated and mad at you, ever. She was ever present in the fight for justice and equality. She used her incredible talents to serve the community as teacher, organizer, civil rights activist, and legislative leader. Her fierce advocacy was unparalleled for education, both during her time on the State Board of Education and throughout her subsequent House and Senate terms. She was known in Columbus and throughout the state as the highest-ranking African-American education lawmaker in the state of Ohio. She wore that moniker proudly. She was committed to the right of every child to receive a quality education. She fought for legislation to fully and constitutionally fund our schools, as Senator Sykes has pointed out, and narrow those academic achievement gaps. She wanted to increase access to all-day kindergarten, identify and support at-risk children, at-risk students, and increase literacy of our state's elementary school students and support our teachers. When I first met CJ, she had in the back of her car boxes and boxes of books. Everywhere she went, if she ever saw a child, she handed them a book. If she saw a parent with children, she was handing them books. She also was providing books to all of the elementary schools in the area. But it was amazing. I'd never seen someone driving around with books and stop to hand them out to people. She believed in literacy that much. Nothing demonstrated her commitment more than in the 1990s when, as Senator Sykes has pointed out, she organized a hunger strike with the state leaders to secure state funding for the school breakfast program. It was courageous. It was a tactic you rarely see at any level of government. It demonstrated her absolute devotion to our children and Ohio's underserved communities, and her strategic sense and creativity in knowing that with the public paying attention to this, that she could move that forward. As a House member, she enacted legislation known as potty parity. It was to double the number of restrooms for women at public assembly facilities. All of our large venues today in Ohio benefit, and all of the women in the state of Ohio that attend any kind of events at those venues benefit from C.J. Prentiss understanding that there needed to be some parity when it came to attendance. I think it came around from the idea that there was a misconception that women weren't attending sporting events, weren't attending in great numbers, but they were. And actually, by making the parity in the restrooms, it also increased the number of women that actually participated. She was very smart at getting to the source of how to solve a problem and really create benefit for the future. While in the Ohio Senate, she served as the minority whip. She was the first female president of the Ohio Legislative Black Caucus, was the second African-American woman to serve as Democratic leader following Ryan McGlynn. She refused to let obstacles prevent her from improving the lives of all Ohioans. When the opposition-led legislature refused to advance a bill to raise the minimum wage, she spearheaded an effort, a statewide effort, to put it on the ballot in a constitutional amendment. Her leadership helped lead voters in approving the amendment, ensuring hundreds of thousands of Ohioans saw their wages increase and helping alleviate the economic hardship for working families across the state. She was a role model and a testament to everything a public servant should embody. She fearlessly stood up for what she believed, even when it was difficult or unpopular. No one was more persistent or determined in her ability to build relationships across party lines, demonstrating her effectiveness as a leader. CJ leaves behind her loving and devoted husband, Michael, her children, Maurice and Albert, her grandchildren, Byron, Daniel, Joseph, Samuel, and Brandon, as well as her long-term legislative staffer, George Boaz, who we still have the benefit of the institutional memory with George as our staffer. CJ will be missed. She left an indelible mark on the people of the state of Ohio, which we should all be grateful for. Mr. President, before we stand, I would like to thank Senator Sykes for his remarks and ask the members of the Senate to stand for a moment of silence for a great Ohioan, C.J. Prentiss.
The Senate will rise to recognize Senator Prentiss. Thank you.